Aaron, appreciate you joining us on the podcast and appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. You've got a lot of stuff that you got going on and that you do on a daily basis. And honestly, I don't know everything that you do. So, I know that they need to listen to you because you speak truth. We share a really good faith connection, and you've helped strengthen my faith. And, we talked earlier, and I didn't necessarily want to admit it, but you helped me in my real estate career. You basically helped me build it. I am who I am because of you. A lot of gratitude there, and you've helped me build my base in the beginning. So I appreciate that. But you're into investing, home flipping, home sales. You do I know you handle some stuff for your family. You've got that going on. What am I missing?
Well, we started a roofing company. So
that's right. Okay. You got a roofing company?
But that's pretty much the gist.
Okay. Which one's your favorite?
I think my favorite is all of them, because then I'm not just having to do one thing.
Okay.
And
that's an easy answer.
I really enjoy investments and getting creative on the development's such an interesting word. I think as soon as you say development, everybody's thinking a developer or something like that. But I think that the aspect of development that I really enjoy is finding a piece of land or a building or something like that, and seeing the things about that specifically that no one else sees, and then going and creating an opportunity.
Right? Okay. Well, I know I don't know if you've ever done a ground up development yet. I know it's in the books or something you're wanting to do. But you've even done more. I've flipped plenty of houses, but I know you had a commercial building or two that you've owned and you've kind of remodeled. So what is your favorite niche, or what makes the most money? Is commercial really the big draw and makes the most money, or do you think people should stick to the more residential area, or what do you found to be profitable?
Well, actually, that's a great point. Here's what I found. I mean, obviously, it's going to depend on your goal, right? Yeah. I've just found that if I'm wanting to build a portfolio, I'm young and I'm aggressive, and I want to, I'd like to multiply. You have different multiplications. If you're just multiplying a couple $1,000s, then single family is great, right? You're going to slowly build. You're going to accumulate. It's something you do on the side. But what I found is if you want to do it and you want to do it well and you want to be aggressive, then you've got to figure out how to multiply thousands. And then once you figure out how to multiply thousands, then you start getting into, how do you think about multiplying maybe 200,000 to 300,000, and then multiplying, and then once you continue to grow those things, it's then you're thinking, okay, well, how do I multiply millions? And so,
interesting.
And you're not going to really multiply millions just by standard single family homes. And so what I found is then, probably the best thing that we've done is land development. Okay. And so probably a great example is we bought a piece of property. It was 60 acres on the south side of Lubbock. We paid a little over $300,000 for it, and it was farmland. And so we just put it on an interest-only payment for a period of time and just farmed it out. So it just cash flowed, and we just let it appreciate. And then as Lubbock grew out south, we always do periodic graphs that talk about, where are we at on the graph as far as how much that property is going to bring. And so we began to split off the different pieces of that property, knowing, okay, this one's kind of hit a spike and it's going to level out for the next couple of years. So it'd be a good time to sell. So we broke it off. And so year to date, we bought it for $3 million, and we bought it for $300,000, and we ended up profiting around, $3.5-4 million on it.
Holy crap. That is insane. Okay. I was you probably doubled your money, and here, okay, 10 to 12x.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so land is awesome. I would say if you can, and it's hard to find, but if you're patient and you're creative, no land opportunity is the same. We're not going to go find that same 60 acres. But since then, we found other ones that were, not going to do it the exact same, but we're going to do it. And our goal is, 10x, or 5x, whatever we can do. So
okay,
yep,
that's awesome. So obviously, if you got, I don't think you can necessarily run out there. If you're watching this, don't run out there and just buy a piece of land you see, and it's like $8,000. And you're like, I can't wait to sell this for, $80,000 in a couple of years. It's not really how it works. It's heavily based on location, and you got to kind of, assume where things are going. So you guys obviously did some research, made a play based on where you think the community is growing. So you did really well there. Something you said earlier that I think is so important, and I'm curious how you've done it. You mentioned you're buying property, and now you have to separate the thousands, right? You have to like understand, okay, there's just another zero, but the numbers are still aligning, the return's the same. But it's still, even as long as I've done it, I've been, in between the $80,000 to $300,000 property range of purchase and flip, and getting over the hump of stomaching of like the fear of, okay, this is a huge price. If this doesn't go well, then this is a way bigger price tag than what I'm used to. Sure. How do you, I understand that, it's just the numbers, but how did you personally get past that hump or that fear and jump into something larger? Like how does somebody stomach that, I guess, and move forward?
I mean, being just fully transparent, I feel like I'm still figuring that out. It's a constant conversation with people that I would say that are bigger than I am, where I'm just processing with them. I'm like, I feel, scared, making this investment. I remember I bought a property in Florida, and it was, I wasn't super familiar with the terrain, and I just hadn't lived there. But I wanted to expand like where I was purchasing. And I remember I talked to one of my mentors, and I was like, all the numbers check out and it seems like it works, but it's a big investment, and it's a massive remodel. And he was like, he said, if you think about it from a perspective of the potential versus risk to reward type deal, are you more scared if you lose 100,000, or would you be more scared on making the profit of potential 200,000? Because there's, and I think when you look at it, like, I'm in this, like, this is what I do. You're gonna make mistakes, and the reality of it is like the lesson on the mistake outweighs the loss. And if you're confident in yourself, in your ability to continue to stack up wins, like if you lose 100,000, you're gonna go make 100,000. There's no big, like I think we're just so scared to lose that we cut our legs off, and we're like I'm going to be in the hole forever. Yeah. And so if you're in that place of making and wanting to make a couple $100,000 or make $1 million, you got to understand that like the risk is obviously there, and you're probably going to miss it a couple of times. But if you're there, there's a reason you're there. You can make that kind of money. And so if you lose 100,000, that's fine. Learn from it and go make another 200,000.
That makes sense. And so obviously you tell somebody if they're really gearing up to flip their house, like, honey, we need to do this, right? We need to get our first remodel. You probably don't recommend taking off the huge chunk unless they maybe have really good mentorship, kind of like you mentioned. Because we don't, I guess it does make sense if you, but some people, their entire salary is $50,000 a year. So $100,000 to lose is probably their savings. So you maybe build up like a little nest egg type of thing, or I was always told never invest what you're not willing to lose. So invest something you're able to part with and not necessarily impact your life. Is that probably that scope? And you've been doing this. You said it's in your wheelhouse. So if somebody wanted to do this and they wanted to rehab or learn how to, and they wanted mentorship, you obviously sell real estate and you've been in the field, so you would help somebody and you could help them with picking the right property and the right purchase as their agent. And then you could also help them on the back end with potentially like the remodel and kind of show them the ropes. Is that something that you've done for people?
For sure. I think everybody.
He laughs.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's funny because the amount of people that I work with that want to flip houses, never done it, but they want to do it because of something they've seen, or they see people be successful. Like, we're going to flip houses. Yeah. These TV shows. And I'm like, people don't understand, like, flipping houses is hard. Yeah. Like, I mean, it is not easy. And when we first started flipping houses, it's like, I mean, you're over there. I mean, you're over there grinding. I mean, you're digging, I have a shovel in my hand and I'm making phone calls at the same time I'm digging 2 inches or 2 feet of dirt, just trying to make the house look nice. And I think people get into it and have no idea how hard it is. They think the numbers check out and they're expecting to spend 25. And I'm like, bro, if I came to you and be like, hey, there's a 2,000 square foot house, $25,000 full remodel. I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. You're not going to get it done for 25.
And you just know that in your head. 'Cause
Yeah.
You've done them. Yeah. You're penciling out numbers. Yeah.
And so, if you're looking to get started, I mean, you know, I would say in any investments, like partnerships are awesome. Find some people that you respect. You know, if you're a go-getter and if you approach those people, like if people approach me and I can tell they're fiery and they're willing to you know, to work and to, you know, maybe grind a little bit, I'm like, dude, I'll partner with you all day, you know, and I'll show you the ropes and help you out. But trying to do it alone it's a steep deal.
Sometimes
steep task.
people sometimes find that deal and they're like, I'm going to make this 70,000 or 50,000. They're like, I don't want to bring anybody in. And then they make the wrong decision. And versus working with you and paying you a portion of the profit, they've whittled it down to 20 to 30 where they could have made more just partnering with you and learning, right? Unless you're completely vetted and in the process and just have done it. It's just routine. It may be worth, you know, paying for the right mentorship or the right coaching, and so that way you minimize your risk. I think is so important. I'm a conservative person, and I'm like I would take a win of some sort over you know, huge win, but you know, high risk any day. I'm going to take my money now.
That's right.
That's kind of how I've always been, and it's funny you mentioned that, you know, they look on TikTok and they see all these videos and things like that, and I feel like I'm going to blow a lot of people's bubble that they put around the real estate world, but. I learned, and something that I don't know if a lot of people know is on those shows, right? They're showing people houses or they're remodeling them, or hey, this one needs work, and here's this Victorian style home, and they always look at 3, right? And then they're like, the agent shows them, and they're like, all right, we'll pick this one, and then they like do this big reveal, or they, you know, and then they finally do the remodel. So you know, they did one in Lubbock. All that stuff is already predetermined, so they've already looked at like 40 houses or whatever. Like normal real estate, you don't just show a client 3 houses and like, got to pick one. You know, come on, Brad, it's time to pick. You know, I've shown you 3. They've already walked multiple homes, got bids, got whatever they're going to do with the property. They're already in contract and like about to close by the time they actually film the episode. And then it's just like, so they already know which one they've already picked, and they just find 3 and look at them, and then they're like, oh my gosh, you picked this one on the show, you know, but he's already done that.
That's right.
And so it's just a lot of smoke and mirrors when you, if anything sounds way too good to be true, more than likely is, because people aren't going to share something that they can easily do and make, you know, $10, $20, $30, $40,000 super easy with you, unless they're somehow profiting off of either sharing the knowledge, growing their page, whatever. I feel like we can help people make that kind of money, but we get in the weeds with them, and we're going to get paid for it. We're not doing it for free on TikTok, and I think that's a huge benefit to a lot of people trying to get in the real estate game, is to contact somebody like Aaron.
For sure. You know, and we live in I've learned a lot over the last few years, just understanding the culture that we live in and the way that we're presenting ourselves to the world is, you know, it's like, how can we get as rich or make it like the most amount of money as quick as we can?
Everybody wants it quick.
Everybody wants it quick. And then there's a reason there's a proverb that talks about whatever you get quick, like it doesn't sustain. Like there's a proverb in the Bible, and it talks about that over and over. And but really, that's like a massive application and a deficiency, I think, in our culture, is like, that's actually how we are in a lot of things, not just money, right? You know, I think I became super aware of like areas that I needed to grow when I started doing Ironmans, where it was like, I've actually got to start thinking a lot more like just stacking little wins and little things in my life. Like, it's not how we show up one time, it's how you show up every single day continually.
That's so good.
I mean, Ironman training is freaking hard. It's one of the hardest things that I've ever done. But if I'm thinking about what I'm going to do 2 days from now, I'm not going to do it.
So you're saying I couldn't run one tomorrow after after going out?
He'd break you in half. Bro, dude, I trained for 8 months and it's still
what is an Ironman? What is the full length? Just so they know.
So I did a half Ironman. I've done 2. And it's
okay. We're still not discounting. What's a half?
I understand.
What's a half? Tell us what a half is.
It's not all that respectable, but it is a 1.2 mile swim, a 56 mile bike, and then a 13.1 mile run.
Okay, and it's back to back to back. Which one do you do first? The swim?
Swim. So it's swim, bike, run.
Okay, and if anybody's ever just played in the pool, You were the most hungry you've ever been in your life after an hour of playing in the pool with even your kiddos or something at YMCA, much less like, I'm assuming you just, whatever this stroke is called the whole time.
Dude,
or do you backstroke after you get tired, or how do you?
Dude, no, it's full freestyle. But what's crazy is like
No floaties?
no float. Yeah, no floaties.
Yeah, I don't know if that's for me.
No, it's so funny because endurance has become a massive part of my life, like in my faith. Because I would tell
mental magnitude.
Well, I would tell anybody. It's like I was like, you want to improve your business? Go commit to something outside of business that requires you to be present every day in it, and it'll tell you all the areas that you're skimping out on in your business. Same thing with if you're married, like I'm married, and it's just like, man, you start realizing like endurance sports, you'll realize like the areas that you're disconnecting in your marriage. Because it's like
that's deep.
You can't just turn around your marriage when it's hard, right? Like a lot of people, they don't understand that like the values of a leader are how you show up every single day consecutively. Like and we don't realize it's the little things that break trust with the people who follow you, right? Same thing with your wife. You're like, hey, we're gonna go on a date, and you keep promising that you're gonna go on a date, and you don't go on a date because you're working. So your priority's on your working, and you just have little trust deals that you break with your spouse or even the people you mentor or lead. It has nothing to do with these. Like you could go and lead all these people, and you're making $300,000-$400,000 a deal, and they're like, man, it's so respectable, but your word means nothing behind the scenes. They won't follow you. Yeah. It doesn't matter how much money you make; they won't follow you. And so that's what endurance has really helped me understand was like the magnitude of the little things that you do every day. Like they weigh up. They weigh up with the level of like the I guess the strength of your relationship and your bond with your wife. It also means something in business when people are able to predict to a degree like what you're doing day by day to be successful, because then they can replicate it, right? And so I would tell anybody that like go commit to something that's difficult that you can't just obtain, and it requires you to be present every day. And watch how it transforms the way that you do your work. You hang out with the Lord. You present with your wife or girlfriend or whatever it is. It's massive. Like, and it'll blow your mind because you're like, man, I realize like where my in some ways I sometimes call them stop signs. It's like you go so far and then you disconnect. Like your mental capacity doesn't allow you to go farther because you haven't stretched it. You haven't pushed it.
Yeah, there's that block.
There's a block.
That roadblock.
And like there's so many times like there's an 8-mile run on the schedule and I'm at mile 4 and every single thing in me is telling me, hey, you've done enough.
Yeah. Like that happens to me on half mile.
Yeah. But think about this. How many times, I mean, you're a little different. I want to get to you in a little bit.
I don't know what that means, but
well,
just because I can't run a full mile, right?
Well, I'll get to it. But how many times are you around people that you recognize the potential in their life, but they're always giving themselves permission to stop because they feel like they've done enough?
I'm very interested to see what you meant by I'm different.
Well, so
did I fall in that category?
So a lot of people like what's cool. I feel like from my experience with Travis is that a lot of you probably don't know is I saw Travis when he just started. Like I saw you when you just started.
Oh yeah.
I
was like reaching out for help.
Yeah.
He's like, oh man, I'm busy. I'm like, well, you've been in it for 8 months. What do you mean you're busy?
Well, I was busy for other reasons. Yeah. And we can get to that in a little bit. But what's super cool about you is I started real estate with a lot of people. And I was the only one at Remax that stayed. All the other guys didn't make it. The ones that started with me.
Yeah.
And obviously,
it's a hard business.
I think that we built a very successful like team and structure. But what was immediately like something that I immediately noticed about you is you didn't know what to do, but you did everything that nobody else was doing. Right?
Yeah.
Like you started. I'd show up at the office and you're in there writing letters.
Yeah.
Like you're handwriting them. You're putting I remember you had stamp galore, just stamping these things.
A little heart, yeah.
And I was just always so impressed because you always did the things that nobody else was doing. Like, and you stayed at the office. is uncomfortable, or even when you didn't have to, I remember you and I would we didn't know what to do at times. We're just playing chess, like on our phones, like against each other. But you always did the things that nobody wants to do. And so that's what I mean by like, you're different is you didn't just show up at the office and be like, I've done enough today. Like you stayed and were like, all right, I'm just going to keep building this consistency and stacking these wins. And it's ultimately like, it's been a joy to watch you. Cause I'm like, man, I saw you from jump doing things that nobody else was doing. And now I've seen you like, and you're more successul than any of the other people that I was around.
I appreciate the words, man. Yeah.
You stacked those. And
it was a grind.
And and that's what's cool about, people that are obviously watching this is like they could look at your life and be like, man, like look at what he's done. But I remember what you did. Yeah. And what you continued to do. Like, again, it comes back to, it's like, we just want these like massive successes so quick without like the day-to-day consistency and building.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I've been in real estate for a long time.
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah. You've been in it for what, 10 years?
Yeah. 10 years.
I'm a year behind. I'm 9. I'm 9 this
I think it's
September.
like 10,
next
11.
month I'm 9.
Yeah. I think I'll actually be 11 in September.
Oh, dang. There you go.
And,
and
so I've been in it for a while, but you just don't, good things just take time. They take time to build. They take time to learn. And, and it's
a lot of people don't see that.
Yeah, they don't. They see success and you're like, how can I get there as quick as I can? And again, like deficiency of culture is like, we've lost sight of like passion, like that, like I want to wake, like,
you see the stuff online. It's all like, you just scroll and you can see all these highlights and, aesthetic bodies of people that have, that are posting about their workouts and stuff. And it's very, people look at, political figures and athletes and like Trump and Steve Jobs and Microsoft and like, man, look, those guys are so rich and like, they don't have to do anything. And it's like, they don't see like, either where they started or what, like the day-to-day of how they grinded and like built, made deals, shook hands, went to lunches, bled, sweat, cried, had those meetings, had those failures. Some of them went bankrupt. You hear stories of millionaire to completely bankrupt, and people don't realize how like big of a deal that is, how hard that is to overcome. Absolutely. And then to come back out on top. And it's like the work ethic of these people is far more than most people that you see that are the ones commenting. They have zero idea of what it takes to get there, much less be there. Right. And so it's hard. It's what do they say? It's easy to hate from outside the club, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But you could get in it. You just don't want to put in the work or wait in the line, right? Everybody wants to skip the line. They don't want to wait in it. And it's like sometimes you got to wait in the line for your time to shine. It just takes building. And anything that you can get rich. I mean, honestly, the only way that I think you can get rich quick is put your entire life savings on black in Vegas and hope for the best. Because other than that, it doesn't happen in that quick. That's the only way. And the risk is 50. There's 48 because you got the green squares, right? So you're willing to risk it like that, you can get rich quick. Other than that, doesn't happen.
That's exactly right. I mean, bro, you couldn't be any more spot on. And I feel like there's for people who, and I'll just say it straight, like for people who, like you and I, we're young and I feel a responsibility to try to help some of these younger people understand that, hey, I understand like what's being communicated, like these and no knock to any of these schools that are like, hey, come in and let's train you and equip you and you're going to make crazy 6 figures in a year. And not to say that you can't do that, because some of that's going to boil down to your work ethic and passion.
It's possible.
But like fall in love with the process, like fall in love with the pain a little bit of like, I don't know. The amount of times I sat in my office for years and being like, I don't know what to do right now.
We did it all the time.
I don't know what to do. And like, but now I've began to understand a bit more of routine and how to be successful, that, now I'm, like we start a roofing company because it makes sense and there's value there. And you understand that like, hey, I actually have value to offer a company, not just like, hey, let me in so I can make money, but it's like, you got to have, you develop and grow value, and so it's like you that comes with time, to where somebody's like, hey, I actually want to work with you, not just because you're an awesome dude. Like, cool, it's awesome that you're a great dude, but like you actually have something that is of value to, like, an asset to whatever you're doing. So you can partnership and start companies, or people want to partner with you on flips, or people want to work with you in real estate because, like, for the most part, all real estate agents can do the same, but there's certain little things that make real estate agents different, and you grow that with time.
Find a good agent. Yeah. No,
so it's the same.
Not built overnight. Yeah.
It's almost the same in every category. It's just again, we just want it so quick, which is, hey, it takes time to be excellent at what you do. You gotta kind of learn some of those things the hard ways, and the best is to learn it from other people that have already made all the mistakes.
Really be a sponge and trust the process. Kind of the point you're making too, that boils down. If I could sum up in one word, number one is you got to be consistent. Consistency is huge, but the main thing is like your mindset. I think that a lot of your points is just really targeting your mindset in the moment, and your, like, almost like willpower, right? But I've been listening to Dave Ramsey a lot. I think I just like him when he talks to people. He's so blunt, and like, all these people bring all these problems. Number one, they don't apparently a lot of people don't know how to handle money. So if you need some financial handling advice, reach out to one of us. I'd be happy to help. I'm sure you would too. I mean, it's in real estate, I think, is a huge way to get ahead in life and invest the right way and don't do all these crazy things. But he always talks to these people, and they bring the problems. They're like, all right, look, I owe $200,000 and my parents are kicking me out of the house, and I don't have a car, just got repoed, and and I've got all these student debts and stuff. So how do I get rid of that? And it's like and all the time he's like, I hate to tell you this, there's no hack. I'm famous. I get on here and talk about people about finance and all this stuff. But there's not, like, you can't call me and be like, oh, look, you're going to go in this room. You're going to talk to this guy. It's going to be white, right? There's ways to maybe get some of the credit card debt knocked down and settle with companies. That's going to take work. It's going to take time. It's going to take phone calls. You may have to go through different processes to get it all handled. Then he's like, at the end of the day, you got to go work. You got to make more money. So quit spinning and then start working more. And it's like everybody wants this like super fast like solution, and because they don't want to get down in the ditch and dig, right? They don't want to like do the hard work. They just want something handed to them. So I just think that it's important to know that whatever you're going to do, it's a grind. Like when we started, you mentioned, like, sometimes you got to do the things you don't want to do or other people are unwilling to do, because I always looked as there's money there, and in the areas that other people aren't doing stuff, it's not oversaturated. Maybe you can find some space and get some business built until you get your portfolio. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you, people have loved when I jump into this type of question, and I've gone over a few myself. But so you've done quite a few houses. So number one, I'm curious if you can give us a quick detail, not to give us the whole story on like probably your best, besides the land deal because it's crushing it, but your best flip, like profit and like quick scenario. But then people really love to hear what's a nightmare scenario? What's something that, like, a crazy real estate story or a nightmare flip story that you could share if you're willing to.
For sure.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
Let me hear it.
Well, golly, man, I'm just. Flips have been great. I mean, I feel like we've developed a really good process. I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm buying. So I'll just tell you, average. We probably average about $40,000 to $50,000 profit on every flip we do. Okay. So
you do the high end stuff. I've seen your stuff. It's beautiful. So you do more than most. I mean, you're completely ripping off baseboards. You're not going over old baseboards. You're redoing all the cabinet faces and stuff. Right. You're going.
Yeah, and we had to make that decision early on. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that aren't doing that, and so.
I don't do that all the time, but I get you. There's two different ways to look at it.
I just like, and I received a really good compliment the other day. Somebody called me and they were just like, "Hey, is this your flip?" And I was just like, and I said yes, and that agent was just like, "Well, if it's your flip, then we know that you did it right. You did it all. Like everything. Like your not,
name. Your name is making
it's getting
waves.
out there. Yeah, it's getting out there. And
I
so
like that.
So flips have been great for us, but it took us a little bit to figure that out. And then I would say I'm trying to think of like other real estate deals.
Think of one.
Dude,
it could be when you're showing a client or
Well, I'll share. I'm trying to think about which one I want to share. Now they're flooding in. Now they're flooding in.
You probably got a few.
this one was pretty funny. This was right when I started in real estate. And
always when people start, man, they just the weirdest deals or people, show up. So
we were there was a situation where there was a divorce, and I was working with the husband or the guy, I guess because they're divorced, but I was working with him, and so I had somebody that wanted to go see the house, so I was showing him the house. Well, the ex-wife just happened to be in on the house, running around the house naked.
What?
while we walked in, and all of a sudden, like, we just see this flash go by, and we're like, oh no.
What?
Yeah. And so
okay. Was she trying to help sell the house?
I mean, that was the first time I ever met her.
Okay.
First time I ever met her. So,
shake her hand.
no, we walked out of the house. We got out of the house as quick as we could after that. And so,
wow.
But
okay.
you know what's funny? They bought the house.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so listen to the story. If your house is not selling, some marketing technique may be to run around naked around your house when people are showing the house, because apparently it draws attention.
Yeah.
No publicity is, or what is it? Bad publicity is still publicity, right? So, some marketing tactics 101. Add that to the list.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I don't think I've walked in on some people, but I don't think I've ever walked in on anybody that's been just naked. I've had a client that saw somebody naked. I didn't see the guy, and he toweled up by the time he reached me. But I've seen that. There is some interesting folks out there trying to get some, with the ideas of how to sell some real estate. So
for sure.
Well, I know we also share a really good faith connection. I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about that. We got a few minutes, but I wanted to just kind of pick your brain on what you've been doing lately, maybe, or what if you're going on a mission or something soon, or kind of what that looks like. But man, I've just been feeling drawn to the Lord lately, and He's just been guiding me. And I'm in a season where sometimes I may not understand the answer of like why. Or like why now maybe, or why is this happening in my life. But it's one of those things. I know there's a bigger picture it's like the chessboard right on the pawn, but the actual the Lord sees the whole playing field, and He can see kind of the next move, right? I'm like, man, my pawn got taken, but He's like, yeah, but we're about to get the castle. We're working towards getting the king, but I can't see that. So I'm just kind of in a position in my life where some things are just kind of unfolding, but it makes way more sense down the road. You look back, like, okay, I see you in the midst here. But anyways, just curious how your life's been, and with faith and all that.
For sure. I obviously that I started in real estate and had great success, and I felt like the Lord called me to go do some mission work, and so I spent a lot of time in the ministry and learning and growing, and just saying yes when it really doesn't make sense. And so I was able to build that equity with the Lord. And honestly, I just grew a lot as a human, just saying no to money and yes to the Lord. But I think
that's
that
tough.
Yeah, it is. But I think that again, man, I think what you said is so real, because here's the reality of the Lord is He's real. And I think that we have this relationship with the Lord, just like we do a lot of things, is we incorporate Him in when it's convenient. But He's real, and He's jealous for His kids. And I think we hear the jealous, like He's jealous for us, and we're like, oh, like He wants something from me, or He just wants you. Like He wants your heart. He wants a relationship with you. And one of the biggest things that I've learned about my faith, especially in business and work and stuff like that, is that there's nothing that comes before Him. Like He is the one thing, right? He is the one thing, and then there's a waterfall that He overflows from that relationship and that connection with Him, and it overflows onto all the other things that you do, right? Like, so there's business isn't going to come before the Lord. Money's not going to come before the Lord. My wife isn't going to come before the Lord. My kids, whenever they come, aren't going to come before the Lord.
Yeah, most people won't understand that.
They don't. But
they don't understand what that means. It's not like disregard your family for the Lord, but almost as you probably were going. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
but
it's perfect.
I love that point because it's you're taking it from a top down approach of filling like a jug and letting it overflow on everything beneath you versus if it was at the bottom when it overflows, there's nothing beneath it to be to have the water fall on it, right? So you get filled by the Lord, which is what the Bible says. Joy comes from the Lord, and you're really when you're steadfast in Him, then everybody benefits beneath that.
Absolutely.
So it has to be the top rank for everybody else beneath it. So it's not like you're putting them necessarily second of like importance so much as you're just
absolutely
you're getting your energy from the source.
He's number one, dude. Like there's, I've actually lived my life's been pretty crazy, and I've gone through a lot. Like I
didn't know if you've ever shared your story in the beginning when I first met you on camera or not. It may be too much, but
I haven't. But I mean, if we have time, I'd love to. Honestly, I'd love to share the gospel because, dude, I've been in ministry schools and people that have been there for years, and I'll ask them like, "Hey, what is your understanding of the gospel?" And they're like, "Jesus died for, he died for me." And I'm like, that's 10% of the gospel. Like that's a part of like, yeah, what he did for you, but there's 90% that's still left there. And I think that when we just focus on that 10%, yeah, he died for my sins. Like that doesn't require, it doesn't empower the reason he came, right? And so so then it leaves people in those cycles of like, man, you're doing the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You have the same struggles. You have the same things that are happening in your life, and there's no change. And then you're wondering why there's no life in your family because he's not in it. Because he is life. And when he's in it, there's life.
Yeah.
Same thing in a church. There's sometimes, and I'm passionate about the church. I'm a part of the church, but sometimes we walk into churches and he's not there. Right? Because it's merely about just forgiveness. And it has nothing to do with like what he did on the cross and rose again to actually empower us to be different. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's when we don't understand the gospel, we don't understand.
We know the stories, but when people even call them stories, it almost gives it a lesser impact versus like I know history, I know the truth. I know the stories, I know the tales type of thing.
Sure.
Yeah. And when you say like it's almost like saying hello, goodbye, like blessed, you're like you say a prayer and it's almost like just what you do before you eat, it's like people just know to do that versus like actually thinking about it as like opening a phone line, making a phone call type of thing to somebody that's real and existing and listening. And I think a lot of, what I've noticed is that when people have either they don't believe or they, I was a believer, but now I'm not. It's like most of the time it's not because science or something won them over so much as they were mistreated by somebody in the church or they saw somebody in the church that wasn't living a faith life or some trauma, right? Yeah. And it usually like has like religious influence. And it's sad to see that because, it's never says that people are imperfect and people are going to twist and pervert the faith. But the faith is always going to be pure. It's just a matter of the people that are bringing it, end up having issues and draw people away from the church. And so, I've always just wanted to be somebody that, that brought the truth. And like, I'm the first to say I'm definitely not perfect, but I definitely try to live by the word and really share the actual truth.
Absolutely.
And just try to be an example of,
of it. But how freeing is it that, there's nothing that we can do to earn his love or affection because he already paid the price. Like he lived the perfect life that we couldn't live. Yeah,
you can't do enough good deeds.
And so it releases you, but it releases you to understand like who he is and like, how he can take, like use myself as an example. I mean, dude, I was a disaster. Like I started getting into drugs and alcohol when I was in 8th grade. And I was a nightmare in school.
That late?
Like, I was so lost, dude. Yeah. I walked through stuff and said yes to things that were so contrary to how I was raised, and
so many people these days are in that. Hopefully, they're listening and watching this to learn from you. But people are still doing those things.
And the reason I jumped into doing those things was I had a moment where I just didn't think that the Lord was real. I didn't think this whole Jesus thing was real. And I was like, if it's not real, I'm going to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
right? And but
I had a pastor tell me that the reason that sin's so hard and it's a temptation is because a lot of sin can be fun, you know, to the human nature. It's just there's a draw to it. It's not like, oh, I hate sinning, I have to do it. You know, it's usually entertaining to some degree.
for sure. And so, dude, I actually had the pleasure of preaching a couple Sundays ago, and
That's awesome.
I shared the gospel and a little bit of my story. But you'll get this. What's really cool is in Genesis, when he's talking about how he creates Adam, he created him in his likeness, in his image, right? Mm-hmm. And so what those words mean when it's translated into Hebrew, one of the words that he uses to describe that translation is a representative. So they're talking amongst themselves. They're like, okay, we want to create a representative that represents who we are in our character. So we want to create somebody that when they look at Adam, they're like, oh, I know where he belongs, right? And so he creates Adam, right? And then after that, he gives him authority, right? He gives him like, hey, I want you to name all of these animals. And so almost like if you just kind of take what you think you know about the gospel or the Bible, and you're like you see this beautiful story where it's like you see a co-labor, like two business partners working side by side, naming the animals. I mean, the amount of joy that was in that time. Like, here's a hippopotamus, here's an octopus. You know what I mean? Like, he's naming all these things.
I have to tell him some of the names they came up with.
They're wild, dude. But you're only going to name stuff like that when you're like, you're not serious. Like you're having fun.
Yeah.
You know. But what's crazy is what happened next is the enemy comes to Eve and is just like, like saying, hey, eat of this tree. Why are you not eating of this tree? And she's like, well, he told me not to. And then and then he's like, well, did he really say? She's like, yeah. And then he's like, well, if you actually eat it, you'll be like God. I'm like, you already were. Mm-hmm. Like you're already like God. And so
confusion.
Right, confusion. But how many times, like it's you realize that like one of the first things the enemy is going to try to do and attack you on is to get you to doubt what the Lord has already said about you. Like for instance, it's just like, you just walked through shame, right? You just walked through something, right? First thing he's going to do is be like, are you really out of that? Like you actually didn't get free. Yeah. You're still stuck in that life. Because here's the thing, the way that the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of darkness works is all by transfer, right? And this is super practical, but it's pretty wild, is in that moment when they agreed to take the fruit, they simply agreed that like, I'm not who he made me to be. And so what they did is they took all of the dominion and power and authority that the Lord had given them just a couple verses earlier, and they handed it to the devil. Right? So from that moment, there was a transfer that took place where the enemy inherited all of their authority that the Lord had given. Right?
Yeah, and it's like a reverse way to look at it.
So in the beginning, there was union, there was authority, there was like a perfect relationship, nothing separated man from God. Right? And then all of a sudden, when the transfer happened, it broke that, right? And so then you had representatives that were in the Old Testament that came to try to call the people back to God. But they didn't have the Holy Spirit. Like, so when he says that he breathed into Adam, it would be translated as he breathed life, the life of the Holy Spirit into Adam and empowering him to live in the way that he could have lived in the garden, which is perfect union with God. Right? And then, and so over time, the representatives were killed off, right? The ones that the Lord had sent, hey, come back to me, and I'll heal you. I'll love, you are my people. They killed them, And so it obviously came up to the point in time where Jesus came, right? Lives this perfect life, fulfilled the things that we couldn't. But here's the thing that we, like, he didn't just come and die for our sins. Like like he came to, like it says, the reason, in 1 John it says, the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the works of the enemy. All of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not a sinner. Like, right? Because he came and paid a price not to just leave us in our sin, but that we'd be born again in heaven, a new creation with new purpose. Like, we've been redeemed back to the garden. So when you compare Genesis and Ephesians, they're side by side, right? Like he continually, like 7 or 8 times in your first like 18 verses, he's talking about that you're in him.
Yeah.
Like you're holy and blameless, right? Like, how can you be holy and blameless and at the exact same time be sinful? How can you be pure and the price he paid was enough to give us pure blood. Like, we're brand new. Like, that's no longer in your nature to sin.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you do sin,
conviction, all that comes into play.
If you do sin, it's simply this. It's just not who you are.
Amen to that.
It's not who you are. It's just not, like, it's so liberating when you think that he died on Calvary's cross and wiping out all the sins. He descends down into hell. And what did he get? He got the keys of death.
I love that.
Right?
I love that. A lot of people don't know that part.
Right. And so it's like he descends and then he ascends, taking all of us with him. And then the first thing he does is he re-equips us with the same authority that he gave Adam. Right? So through sin came from Adam. Life comes through Jesus. Right? And so it's like, just as sin was the seed of Adam, it gave life, or it gave death to all creation. Jesus came so that we would have life through all of creation, that we would have a new seed implanted in us, that we would actually be a representative, that when people look at us, they're like, oh, I know where he belongs, or I know where she belongs, right? That we actually look like Jesus. That we actually like have a relationship. And again, it only comes by relationship, and that's the point. Like, he died so that we would be his kids, right? Not that we would just be a representative. And that's why it's even deeper than what happened in the garden. It's so much deeper than that, because he died and rose again so that we would be his, like, legitimate kids, like his family. You know, that we would have this, like he said, it was destined before the world was even formed that we would be adopted as his kids, that we would be his literal family, and that our inheritance would be him, the kingdom.
That's probably deeper than most people read Genesis, because as you read Genesis, you're thinking of the nameless, right? And that was powerful. And obviously, like, you know your stuff. It's good. You know your stuff. That's truth. And you know, some of that you could even say, like, you know, the Lord gave you a platform and is speaking through in multiple areas, and you got to preach and you're on here, and it's like, I think that God has called you, and you know, even myself, to implement it more into business, and to let people know that it's not a scary thing to, like, be in business and making money, and at the same time be able to praise and thank the Lord for everything we've got going.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. What you're doing is great.
And we can kind of leave them with this. I think that we have to know that, dude, there was this quote that hit me right between the eyes. There was a guy that had a conversation with the Lord at one point in time, and he was just, I think, thinking in his mind, he's like, one of these days when I see the Lord, I'm going to ask him why he allowed this person the person, like, had, I don't know, something happened to him, and it, like, kind of just changed his course, right? Like, I don't know if it was like a car wreck or something like that, but he was like, I'm going to ask the Lord why he allowed that. And then the Lord responded to him and he said, I would ask you the same question. Why did you allow that? You know, like, so again, like, we got to think about when Jesus rose again, who did he give authority to? Give it to us. And so we're sitting here like, God, why are you not intervening? And his response is, why are you not intervening?
Yeah.
I filled you with the spirit of life. The same breath that I breathed into Adam was the same breath that lived in me and rose me from the dead, that all these miracles and stuff happened. And so here's the reality and the opportunity that we have, right? And there's mountains of the world, right? You have, like, and I'll just give a couple, but you have, like, obviously, like, church, which would be called, like, the religious mountain. Then you have media, then you have business, and you have government. So you have all of these different mountains of the world. And the true reality is that he gave us the authority to govern those mountains, right? And so you and I being in business, there's a responsibility on us to be able to govern the mountain of business. And I think that we look at that like we got to rule and we got to be successful and wealthy and all this stuff, when in reality it's like we're called to be pure, you know, and we're called to do it differently. That we would like that when people even get in a room, they would smell the fragrance, like, man, this guy's different in business. Like, he's different in the way that he does things. He's different in the way that he takes care of people. Like, he's just different. Yeah. You know, like the Lord is looking, he's looking for those kind of people that would take a stand in their mountain and make a difference. Like, we're not going to be like everybody else. Yeah. You know, we're not going to take advantage of people. We're not going to lie and manipulate people to get what we want. Like, you take care of people, you know, you bless people, you give abundantly, and you raise up people to be successful. But the definition of success is got to be defined, right? You know, it's got to be defined. But, you know, and we can do a podcast on that another time. It's just like, what does success actually look like? Because I mean, we can go out and make all the money in the world, but you go home, you're not there. Yeah. You know, you're not there with your wife, you're not there with your kids. Yeah, that is honestly a real world topic that I think people need to hear. That's gonna be a tough one. I think we should do that. Yeah. Well, here's one last quote, and then we can wrap it up. There was a guy in ministry, and he does a lot of business. And at one point in time, the Lord spoke to him, and he said, "You're always home, but you're never present." So you're always home with your kids, but you're never present. Yeah. You know. Being present takes. God, what was the word that we were? It takes. There's an I. It takes. Intentionality. Intentionality. You got to be intentional. Yeah, and I think that's so true. You got to put down the phone. You got to be present. You got to be in the moment, because we'll look back and be like, man, I don't think the thought is ever, I wish I made another dollar. So much as I wish I did X, Y, Z in my life, or traveled, or spent time with kids, or whatever. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Let's do another podcast. Let's do it. That was good. Let's do it. Well, appreciate Aaron being on. Obviously, if you need some real estate stuff, holler at Aaron. Aaron can do pretty much everything in real estate, teach you, guide you. You know, if you're looking for some spiritual counsel, he can set you up in the right spot. I'd love to help with any of those things too. So make sure if you guys liked it too, subscribe, wait for the next video. We're going to have more rolling out. So appreciate you. Thank you for having me on, man. Appreciate it. God bless. Yeah. Stay frosty. That's my catchphrase. Stay frosty. Yeah, bro. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it a thing.